This online lecture is about running records and miscue analysis. Taking and analysing a running record is an important skill as a literacy teacher. Running records are an almost daily event in the early years of school, up to about year 3. After that, they're less common, but are a useful tool to diagnose particular processing and strategy issues that a struggling reader may be having. It's therefore important to understand the process. Here we can see the marking code to use when taking a running record. It takes some practice to mark up a running record, so audio recording the child as they read is helpful, so you can listen back and ensure your record is accurate. Look at the example running record here. We can see that the child has made 4 errors and 3 self-corrections. This running record has not yet been analysed in terms of the miscues, so let's start to do that now. First of all, we do the calculations for the running record. So we take the number of words, which is 69, and then the number of errors, and we calculate the error rate. So in this case, that's 4 errors out of 69 words, or 4 over 69. We simplify this fraction into a ratio. So 4 divided by 4 equals 1, and 69 divided by 4 is 17. So for every 17 words read, the child made 1 error. Using the conversion table, we turn this into a percentage. It's 94% accuracy. Now we need to calculate the self-correction ratio. There were 3 self-corrections, and these become the numerator of our fraction, the top number. We add the self-corrections and the errors together for the denominator. The fraction then is 3 over 7. As a ratio, this is 1 and 2. So for every 2 errors, there was 1 self-correction. So what does this all mean? Well, as we can see here, a text between 90 and 95% accuracy is judged as instructional. So Ben's teddy bear, the text that we just saw, is instructional for this child. Using the text level against the expectations for the child's age, we can see if the child is reading at, above, or below his or her age. In this case, the child is 6½, and the text is a PM reader at level 15 to 16, which is below what would be expected for this age. A self-correction rate of 1 and 2 is good. This means that the child is reading for meaning and is monitoring his reading. As well as the information on the running record itself, it's also important to consider the information gained from hearing the child read. This is called orchestration. We need to ask ourselves, what did the reading sound like? What do you think this tells you about what the student thinks reading is about? This relates to whether reading is seen as something that makes meaning or as an activity of word calling. If the reading is slow and laboured, the student may not be processing effectively. It's important to have a conversation between the student and teacher to confirm if the text has been understood. When you listen to David read, it's clear that although the accuracy score may indicate the text is at instructional level for him, further work is needed to improve phrasing and fluency before increasing the text difficulty level. When the reading is phrased, fluent, expressive, with appropriate intonation or modulation, the student is processing effectively and can be said to be orchestrating the reading process. Let's now consider what we do to analyse the miscues the child has made. This is where we apply the 3 cueing system, meaning, structure, and visual cues, to determine what the child is using and not using. Up to the point of error, did the child use meaning, that is, the text messages combined with their knowledge of the main ideas and concepts? Did they use structure, knowledge and use of their spoken language and the text language, the syntax or grammar? Did they use visual or graphophonic information? That's knowledge of words, letters, letter clusters, and the ability to visually analyse or scan words. Let's look at these in a bit more detail. These are some questions that you should ask to help analyse the miscues. For meaning, ask yourself, does the substitution make sense? Was the student looking at the pictures or text and predicting what might fit? For structure, does it sound right in terms of the sentence grammar or sentence structure? Errors on words such as is, the, to, in, was, a, this and they are often structure errors. And for visual information, does it look right? Was the student looking at the letters? Was there any correlation between the letters of the word in the text and the substitution? You might want to pause the recording at this point and have a go at analysing the sample text provided with your course materials. A further source of information is the child's strategic activity or behaviours. What is he doing as he reads? In particular, we're interested in monitoring behaviour as this leads to self-correction and shows a focus on making meaning. So we're looking for self-monitoring, noticing if reading makes sense, and matching the language and visual information of the text, and self-monitoring with regard to whether reading is not making sense and matching the language and visual information of the text. For students to be able to get the messages of a text, some skills and strategies they will need to control are active searching for and using any appropriate information they know from outside or inside the text to work at the point of difficulty. They might cross-check one source of information against another. Self-correcting mismatches or substitutions by searching for more information is a common behaviour, and integrating multiple sources of information from each of the three cues, and making discoveries about the messages, the language, the orthographical and phonological information in the text. All of these things come together also as part of orchestration. Other behaviours you may observe while a child is reading are stopping when in doubt and appealing for help. Children may repeat or reread to check, confirm or clarify, to self-correct and search for information that will help them solve the word that they are stuck on. They may think about what's happening and what has happened in the text and what might happen next. They might listen to themselves to ensure that what they're saying makes sense and sounds right. They may visually scan or analyse words to rapidly find a word that fits the message of the text. And skimming text to quickly get the general idea or scanning for specific information are other behaviours to not only observe for but encourage. And then questioning to clarify the meaning of words, phrases or text messages. Many of these behaviours that you may observe, you can also think about how you could encourage those behaviours or strategies as children orchestrate to make meaning. Finally, we analyse the self-corrections. First ask, what led the student to make the error? So we analyse every self-correction twice, first as an error. Then ask, what led the student to think again and have another try at solving the word? So that's analysing the self-correction. This cross-checking behaviour, you might ask these kinds of questions to figure out what the student was doing. Did they search for a word that would better fit the meaning of the story? Did they search for a word that would better fit the language structure of the text, of that sentence? Did the student search for something different, a different source of information to their first attempt? For example, cat might be self-corrected to dog after looking at the picture or the word in more detail. After analysing the miscues, think about the cues overall that the child is using and the ones that aren't being used. And what about comprehension? And what about orchestration? Those are all the elements that come together as you describe what was happening. What can you add to your own running record about these elements for David and the text, Ben's teddy bear? What does this add to the overall picture of the child's reading abilities and needs? These are the same approaches, the same questions, the same thinking that you need to do for the children for whom you're going to write a profile in assignment 2. Here's an analysed version of the running record for Ben's teddy bear, read by David. How does yours compare? Where do you think you might go next? Well, cross-referencing with the New Zealand curriculum indicators in English and the literacy learning progression descriptors is a good, helpful next step.